Welcome to the latest in our series of Top 10 Tips. Tonight I'm delighted to introduce Orsi Dunn, who is a lecturer in ESOL at Ayrshire College. Orsi's done a tremendous amount of work recently on trauma-informed ESOL, and this evening she's going to share her top 10 tips on trauma-informed ESOL practice in classrooms. So, welcome Orsi, and over to you.
Hi Sue, thank you very much for having me. Hopefully you can see my slide just now.
Yeah, we can, yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to start with a fairly obvious one. My first tip is to create a safe environment for learners. Yes, it's an obvious one to start with, because students need to feel physically and emotionally safe in the classroom, need to have clear exits, clear signs marking exits, clear sight lines, a choice of where they sit, in terms of physical safety. And the following tips and suggestions will help you in terms of creating emotional and safety for students in the classroom as well. So my second tip is to have empathy and compassion in the classroom. And I know that ESOL practitioners have oodles of this. So I'm preaching to the converted, but our unconditional positive regard will make students feel safe and help them establish connection with us and with other learners. Approaching the student's behaviour as a form of communication and from a place of understanding will really help students. And it will also help us to see their behaviour in context rather than taking that behaviour personally. Students need a sense of belonging in the classrooms, and they get that sense of belonging by being listened to and by being seen and heard. So this will lead us to providing opportunities for students to connect with us and connect with each other. Trauma tends to happen or take place in and through relationships, and healing takes place in and through relationships as well. So providing a safe place where they can form positive, nurturing and supportive relationships is key to their healing from trauma. Reciprocity, seeing and being seen is a key aspect of recovery, and we can achieve that sense of nurturing and supportive learning community by providing our students with plenty of opportunities for collaboration. Okay, so choice is an important aspect in the classroom, because in the trauma-informed classroom, because trauma tends to intensify the need for control in trauma-impacted learners, and students definitely need a greater degree of choice. So having a greater degree of choice over what you engage with in the classroom can be incredibly empowering for trauma-impacted students. Choice can be integrated into every element of our courses. So, for example, starting with where the student sits or how they complete a certain activity, who they work with, what topics they cover, and having the power of opting out will be also essential for a student in order to feel safe in the classroom. So choice is basically about adjusting the power balance in the classroom. Predictability. It's an important aspect of the trauma-informed classroom, because trauma-impacted students need to be given really clear expectations. Structure will give students a greater sense of safety because they know what to expect, and surprises can be can be difficult for a trauma impacted student to deal with. Now, I'm not advocating complete rigidity at all. No, students need to be encouraged to try new things and take some risks, because that's how new learning takes place. But you need to bear in mind that changes can be quite a challenge for a trauma impacted student. So we need to prepare them, or try to prepare them for change, and discuss future activities with them. Minimizing potential triggers is one thing that we can do for our learners. We really need to get to know our learners and develop our understanding of their actions and the actions and behaviours or topics that can trigger a trauma response from them, or a stress response from them. So we need to really be attuned to our learner. This can be really difficult because we don't know what can trigger a student, but we can develop a critical eye, a trauma lens, with which we screen the materials that we use, the topics that we discuss. So, for example, when it comes to family, home, work, and verbal sensitivity, most of all, we can really make simple adjustments that will allow us to get to know our learners and become more attuned to them, and therefore for our learners to feel more safe in the classroom. My next tip is scaffolding. So it's the bread and butter, quite possibly, for most ESOL practitioners. These are sequely structured activities, and what we need to understand is that a trauma-impacted learner can feel quite threatened by any form of new learning. So new learning can be a potentially confronting experience for the classroom. Therefore, if we sequentially structure our activities and carefully scaffold them, we can avoid stress reactions. Bruce Perry talks about too much, too soon, too new, in terms of potentially provoking fight or flight responses from learners. We need to keep that in mind. Okay, and if we do scaffolding, then we'll have opportunities for frequent breaks, because we use small building blocks, so it's easier to insert a break in between activities. Hypervigilance can be exhausting. So students really do need time for or in order to recharge, and we know that trauma experiences can make the mind and body believe that there's constant danger around us, and assessing our environment for danger at all times makes us or puts us on high alert. Now, this is really exhausting, and it will have a huge impact on learning. So frequent breaks will make a tremendous difference for students. Now, psychoeducation is something that I think is really important for all of us. We all need to understand what our own biology. We all need to understand what makes us happy, and what has the potential to have a negative impact on our well-being. So exploring the English language through the topic of well-being can be really useful for trauma-impacted students, but we all benefit from that knowledge. And finally, self-care for you, the practitioner. What we need to recognise is that there's a tremendous amount of emotional, physical, and psychological demand involved in working with trauma-impacted learners. And all that compassion that we have comes with a really big price tag. Okay, so first and foremost, we need to be compassionate with ourselves, or to ourselves. We need to recognise the incredible amount of emotion labour, as it's called now. So we need to recognise the incredible amount of emotion labour that is involved in teaching. Therefore, we need to look after ourselves and we need to draw our boundaries. We need to care for each other, for ourselves most, first and foremost. So we need to care for ourselves without judgment. Okay, just the way that we look after our learners and care for our learners. So this is me. Thank you.
Thank you, Orsi. Yeah, there's a lot there. I know it's very difficult to break it down into 10 top tips, but that's fantastic. And I know myself that having just started the new academic year, and I'm sure many other practitioners and fellow teachers are having new classes with a greater number of trauma informed, someone traumatized students. And it's always difficult to know just how to do the best you can in an empathic way whilst looking after yourself and taking on board all of these things you talk about. So thank you very much. I think that's a very useful way to start our autumn term in the 10 Top Tips series, and for practitioners who are starting a new academic year. So thank you very much for your contribution. Lovely to see you again.
Thank you for having me.